Hi, today's lesson is on preparing files for the web. This is the last lesson that we are going to cover in this book. Isn't that exciting? It wraps up the text on preparing Photoshop files for use on the web. This includes working with buttons and artboards. Now, I know there's like a couple of lessons after this, but this is the last lesson that we need to cover for my class. So starting next week, after you take your last quiz, you guys will actually be able to start on your first portfolio project. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up all of the lesson files that we are going to need for today. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and even open up the in file because I do want to talk to you about that. There is quite a bit going on in this lesson. Okay, we have 13 start, which is the very first lesson of that we're going to work on first, and that one will be resaved as 13 working. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that right now while I'm thinking about it. Okay, this is already a Photoshop file, so all I have to put in the file name is 13 working. Okay, and then this is the second one that we're going to work with. All right, and I did go ahead and open up the in file, and I will talk to you about that, later if I need to look at the in file. But this is the one that we're going to focus on first. Okay, all right. Creating placeholders with the frame tool. It is common practice to design the layout before you have the final graphics for it. You can simplify the design process by creating placeholder shapes called frames. As you refine the design and you have the final graphics, you can easily place graphics directly into the placeholder frames. You create frames with the frame tool, and that keyboard shortcut is K on your keyboard. A frame can contain an imported graphic, a smart object, or a pixel layer. When you draw a frame, you're going to notice a big X in the middle of it, and that indicates that it is a placeholder frame. Okay. All right. So we have the data files or the lesson files open that we are going to work with. Okay. And I have resaved that as 13 working. All right, so your rulers should be showing. If by chance they are not, you want to make sure that you go to View and Rulers and turn them on. And for today's lesson, we have to switch these from inches to pixels, okay? Now I'm going to press K on my keyboard to give me the frame tool. And I'm going to use my frame tool to draw right on top of this big gray box that's already here on the upper portion of my document. Okay. Now, again, when you are drawing with the frame tool, you're going to see that big X. All right. That X indicates that that frame is still waiting for a picture. Okay. So that's what makes that different than just a regular frame that has a colored fill in it. All right. So in the layers panel, we're going to actually have a lot going on in the layers panel. All right. In fact, we're going to get introduced to layer groups. We're going to have to, or it's basically layer folders. We're going to be moving layers inside of those layer groups or layer folders. So just kind of when you read the chapter, go as slow as you need so that you don't miss any steps and then you can really get a thorough understanding of the material that's being presented. All right, so in the layers panel, I want to make sure that frame 1, which is this frame that I just drew that has the X in it, is still selected, and it is. And I'm going to go to File and Place Linked. Okay, and inside the Lesson Files folder, there is actually quite a bit that they have provided for us. Okay, so I want to just talk about that for just a second. So inside the lesson files for 13, okay, we have our 13 start, our 13 museo. You guys probably have the 13 in file as a JPEG. All right, there is an art folder that has these Beach, De Young, Main 1, and North Shore. They're all JPEGs. Those are images we are going to work specifically with in 13 working. Okay. In addition to, there is an assets folder, an assets desktop, okay, an assets iPhone, and then there is a folder that has buttons for galleries 5, 6, 7, and 8. The JPEGs in that folder will be used in the section of this lesson where you guys are going to learn how to create an action, and batch process with actions. All right. That is what will be needed at that time. Okay. So, okay, you can approach this in two ways. You can, not that I really would like to get your data files back, all right, but if you would like to just copy this whole lesson 13 folder from your lesson files into your homework, you could do that, because you're going to have to end up creating folders for assets desktop, and assets iPhone into your homework folder, because these three folders right here, this one, and this one, we are going to learn how to export to at the end of this lesson, which is very, very easy to do. But you're going to have to be able to export artboards into the assets, and then export layers as JPEGs into assets desktop and assets iPhone. Okay. So if you want to, you can just copy those three folders into your homework. They're blank, or you can create new folders for each of these in your homework folder. Okay, I'm just telling you that up front, because this particular lesson, like I had mentioned, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot that you're going to have to turn in for homework. That's why I'd mentioned put everything into one folder and then zip that folder. Okay, so all the lesson files that you're going to need, the 13 museo_working, the 13 working, all the file folders with exported artboards and layers, everything will be in there. That way I have everything I need in order to accurately grade for you. Okay. All right. So I'm just letting you know that there is a lot in this lessons folder for you this time. All right. So inside the art folder, okay, I need to make sure that I'm using the North Shore JPEG. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and click place. All right. And there is the image. Okay. All right, so I'm going to have to end up zooming in a little bit because I'm going to have to be able to see. All right, so I'm going to draw a frame, okay, underneath the 4 gray squares that you see here. Okay, so here's 4 gray squares. All right, and so I'm going to end up drawing a frame directly underneath of that. All right, so basically what I need to do is go ahead and draw them. Okay, and it really doesn't matter at this point whenever we go to draw these frames with our frame tool, because they're actually going to give us exactly the correct positioning that we need for it. Okay, so we're going to end up changing the X value and the Y value so that these go right into its proper position. Okay, so what is important is that we draw a frame that is 180 by 180. Okay, so there is my width and height at 180 by 180. Okay, all right. So I can actually use my properties panel now that my frame is drawn and it's sitting in the document. I can use my X and Y coordinates over here to put this right in its proper place. Okay. All right, so my X value for this first one is actually going to be 40. And my Y value is going to be 648. Okay, so could we have drawn images and put them right on top? Yes, we could. Okay, they're just showing you that there is another way to do this by using your properties panel and your X and Y coordinates. Okay, all right. So what we can do is we can drag the frame one layer, which is this right here, right onto the create a new layer button. Okay. So I'm going to drag this, and basically what that does is it duplicates it. Okay. And it gives it the name frame one copy. All right. Now remember, whenever we duplicate a layer, it does it pixel for pixel, and it lays it directly on top of the original. So technically the original is laying right here. So we either have to grab the move tool and select the move tool and slide it over, or we can use the move tool to select, and then we can use the properties panel with the X and Y coordinates, and then we can move it. Okay. So basically that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to highlight the X coordinate and do 300 pixels. Now, the Y coordinate is still 648. We don't need to change that because we're still moving horizontally in a row. Okay. So this coordinate was what, 40 for X. This one's going to be 300. We're going to duplicate again, and we're going to keep moving those across. Okay. So I'm going to duplicate that again and drag that onto to create a second one. Okay. And this one, I'm going to change the X value to 550. And notice that that third one goes right into the third position. All right, so I want to go back to my original frame one, oops, and drag that on to create a new layer, and that gives me my third copy. And my X coordinate for this one is going to be 800 pixels. All right, so now I have my original one, which is frame one. And then I have frame one copy, which is second, frame copy two, which is third, and copy three, which is fourth. Okay. All right. So that's kind of cool. So now that we have worked extensively in a previous chapter on working with layers and stuff in layer basics, we know that we can drag and drop images. We know that we can do file and place embedded and place linked. Okay. Now that we are working with the frame tool, we can also use the properties panel, and there is an inset image box right here, and we can actually load images this way. All right, you can see find on Adobe stock, open libraries, and look, place from local disk, embedded, and linked. All right, so that just gives us another way to place an image. Okay, so I just wanted you guys to know that as well. Okay, so what I need to do is that we need to come back over here and select each one of these frames that we drew, all right? Now notice the first frame that I have selected coordinates with frame one, okay? So you can do this one of either way, all right? You can use your inset image over here and select place from linked, or you can go and find it up in file and place linked. Okay. The fact of the matter is it's going to get you the exact same result. Okay. So my second frame, it coordinates with frame one copy. So this time I'll use this method, and I'm going to place linked, and this one is going to be the North Shore. Okay. I'm going to select the third one, which coordinates with frame one copy two, and I'll do this one again. Okay, and this one's going to be De Young, the JPEG. Okay, and then I'm going to select the fourth one, and then I'll just do this method instead. So place linked. All right, and this one is going to be main one. All right, now I know that this picture does not fit. It looks like the image is just a little bit smaller than the frame size, but you will actually resize that picture. I'm not going to do that for you right now, but you guys, there'll be a step or two that you guys will work on that. So I'm just going to leave that for the time being. Just know that that won't stay that way. Okay, moving on. The next section is using layer groups to create button graphics. Okay, layer groups make it easier to organize and work with layers in a complex image, especially when there are sets of layers that work together. We get introduced into the info panel in this lesson. It is used to display information dynamically as you move the pointer or make selections. Well, it's going to depend on what tool you have selected to. It's handy for the X and Y coordinates, width and height, and color values. Okay, so it's basically giving us a lot of the same information that we see right here in the properties panel, but it's giving it on the fly. So as you're moving your cursor, your X and Y coordinate values are changing. Whereas with the properties panel, you have to tell it what the X and Y coordinates will be and type it in there and press enter. So it's very similar, except the info panel is just very dynamic. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay. It's under window and info. And actually, I don't even know if mine was open. I don't think it was. But anyways, it's the lowercase I with this circle around it. So I'm just going to kind of like just move my cursor over here, and it gives you RGB and CMYK values. In addition to, it gives you the dynamic values for your X and Y coordinates. Okay. And then I like that because it also gives you your document size as it sits, and then if you were to flatten. Okay. So you get a little bit of that status bar as well right here. Okay. So I don't believe we've ever used the info panel outside of this lesson, but I wanted to let you know what that was. Okay. All right, so there's quite a bit of work that we're going to do. So basically what I'm going to walk you guys through is to create some buttons that's going to go underneath this picture right here, 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 and here, okay? That's going to say gallery 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then if we scroll down, notice that it looks like there's additional room for pictures right here where we could potentially have 5, 6, 7, and 8. Well, that's where those buttons are going to come in from the file folder in that lessons folder that has the gallery 5, 6, 7, and 8 JPEG. You guys are going to create an action that not only opens the graphic or the image, it's going to place it exactly where it needs to go. And then it's going to have gallery 5, 6, 7, and 8 that matches. Okay. So we're going to physically put these in right here, and then actions will put in the remaining 4 on the bottom. All right, so I need to drag a guide down, excuse me, to Y, and it's going to be 795 pixels. So I'm going to drag one down, and you can see the Y coordinates. So it'd be about 795. Well, give or take. You know what? Let me zoom in on that too. That might be helpful. No, it's really not. Close enough. Okay. All right. So we have a guide that has been drawn. All right. And we're going to end up putting in this area the button that says gallery 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. All right. So that's what we're going to work on right now. So I need to come over here into my layers panel, and I need to select my beach frame because this is the image that I'm actually going to be working with. Okay. And I'm going to add a new layer directly above it. I'm going to name this band. Okay, so, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my rectangular marquee, which is M on my keyboard, and I'm going to draw a selection that is roughly 138 pixels by 33 pixels, and it's going to go right in this area right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that in there. Okay, mine is almost spot on. I did 180 by 34, so that's good. And then I'm going to go to Edit and Fill. Okay, now even though our contents says color, you got to do the drop down and you got to physically select it again. All right. And then they're giving us the RGB color that we need. And that is R is 25, G is 72, and B is going to be 121. Okay, so it's going to be a nice blue color. And then I'm going to click OK. And notice that it automatically puts the blue color in for me, which is great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Now you could do a Control D on your keyboard, but look, our contextual taskbar is showing, or yours hopefully is showing. All right, and then I'm just going to use deselect from there. Okay, now with my band layer currently selected, I'm going to use my horizontal type tool, and that is T on your keyboard. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and try my best to put in the values for my fonts. Okay, Myriad Pro regular, 18 points. Anti-aliasing on this one will be strong. Okay, I need to do centered, and my color is white. Okay, I am not clicking on that set text color because it always wants to change my font size back to the size that it was before. All right. I'm going to come down here, and yes, I'm just going to click one time. I know it's going to put lorem ipsum down there. I don't care. I'm going to delete that out, and I'm going to type in here gallery 1. Okay, I know I'm going to use my move tool, and I can slide this over into position, and then that's fine. All right, so if we go back and take a quick look here, we have our gallery 1 and our band layer. Okay, and of course we have our beach frame, but I think they're going to have us exclude the actual beach frame, or we might have to put it in later. All right, so I'm going to get my gallery 1, and I'm going to get my band layer. So I'm just going to shift click both of those together, and then I'm going to come up here on my menu bar at the top, and I'm going to go to layer. And I'm going to do group from layers. Okay, so basically what that allows me to do is go ahead and name this. And I'm going to name it gallery 1. Okay, and what that does is it creates a layer group, or what I call a layer folder, and it places the 2 layers I had selected at the time I created it, and it places it inside of it. Okay, how neat. All right, you could do the exact same thing by clicking this button in the lower right-hand corner that says create a new group, and then merely just dragging each one of those layers and placing it inside, double-clicking the name and changing it to gallery 1. Okay, again, multiple ways to do the same thing. Okay, so you can probably imagine we're going to do the exact same thing to create gallery 2, 3, and 4, and then also create their corresponding group folders for that. All right, so with the gallery 1 group selected in the layers panel, which mine is, okay, I'm going to select my move tool. All right, my move tool is selected. That's V on your keyboard. And then in the options bar, I want to make sure that auto select is deselected, and it is. All right. And I'm going to basically hold down my Alt key, and I'm going to hover over my gallery 1. Okay. So not only is it, now if you're looking at my cursor, okay, here's what my cursor looks, my move tool looks like without holding down the Alt button. It's just the black arrow. Once I press and click, it turns into a black and white kind of arrowhead. Okay, basically what it's going to do is it's going to copy by Alt dragging, and it duplicates it. Okay, which is exactly what I wanted to do. Why? Because it's just going to keep us from redrawing the blue fill, putting the blue color in, and then retyping gallery whatever on top of it. Okay, So notice that it created a gallery 1 copy. Okay, so I immediately, so that I don't confuse myself, okay, I'm going to rename that gallery 2 and press enter. All right, but notice that it's hiding. It's there, it's just underneath the picture. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have this above the right picture. So I need to move gallery 2 up 1, okay, and just kind of keep going and so that it's at the top. Okay, so keep moving your gallery 2 up in your stacking order until you can see it. All right, then you can grab your horizontal type tool and change that to gallery 2. There we go. All right, perfect. Hey, anytime we can make a shortcut, I'm all for it. All right. So I'm going to come back down here now. And I'm going to select my beach frame layer and I'm going to move it up into my gallery 1 folder. Okay. However, I'm going to have to expand my gallery 1 folder because I need that beach frame to be underneath all the text, because if not, it's going to hide it because of where it's at in the stacking order. Okay. And I need to do and I'm going to go ahead and collapse that folder. So now gallery 1 contains the image, the blue fill, the rectangle, and the text for gallery 1. Okay. All right. So I'm going to collapse that folder. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to move the North Shore into my gallery 2. Okay. Putting it underneath gallery 2 and band. You need the image to be at the bottom of the stack. Okay. So now I'm going to collapse the gallery 2 folder. All right. I'm going to go back and click onto my gallery 1 folder itself. All right. And I'm going to add a drop shadow. So I'm going to add a layer effect and I'm going to do a drop shadow. Okay. And I do have preview on so you can see it as I'm doing it. Our opacity needs to be 27%. The angle is going to stay at 120 degrees. The distance is going to be 9 pixels. The spread is going to be 19%. And the size is actually going to be 18 pixels. Okay. And then I also want to add a stroke. So you've got to make sure that you turn on the stroke. Oh, we are not leaving that green. Once you turn it on, I'm going to go to the stroke. This one's going to be a 1 pixel, so it's going to be very tiny. You really won't see it down here at the bottom, but you will see it towards the top. The position is going to be on the inside. The eyedropper tool, okay, I'm actually just going to go and sample the color. It's actually, if you use the eyedropper tool, it's actually going to sample. It's going to give you the exact RGB color we initially put in. All right. R is 25, G is 72, and B is 121. And I am going to click OK and then click OK. Okay, so now I have a drop shadow and an inside 1 point blue stroke around this whole thing. Because the guides are there, I know it's kind of hard to see it, but you can kind of see that blue outline that went around the picture, especially up top. It's around the whole thing, but it matches the rectangle fill of the gallery 1. That's why you don't see it down there. All right. So I need to hold my Alt button down. Remember, I'm on a Windows laptop, and I'm going to Alt drag my FX all the way up and drop it on my gallery 2. Okay, to duplicate that. All right. So now you can see the FX on that as well. Okay. Now you guys are going to go ahead and duplicate this and finish steps to do the gallery 3 and the gallery 4. Okay, it's going to work the exact same way. And you guys will resize this image over here. Okay. All right, I'd like to move on to the next section in this lesson, which is on automating a multi-step task. An action is a set of one or more commands that you record and play back to apply to a single file or batch of files. It is a feature that cuts down on formatting. You use the Actions panel to record, play, edit, and delete individual actions in addition to saving and loading them. Photoshop comes with several pre-recorded actions. Well, this is just called the default action set. And it is a time-saving process by performing routine tasks on files. You can even streamline your work by applying an action to multiple files at one time. Okay, so this is important. You need to know this. Actions do not record in real time. All right, so if it takes you 15, 20 minutes to create these actions and take your time and go here and do this, okay, it does not record in real time. So it records the steps as you complete them, kind of like the history panel does, okay? But whenever you play your actions, they play back very quickly, okay? So I just wanted you guys to understand that. It could take you forever to create your set of actions, but whenever you play them back, they play back very quickly, okay? So they do not record in real time. They record the steps as you complete them. Okay, so this section on recording an action and then working on batch playing an action, you guys, I'm going to allow you the opportunity to do those steps. Okay, that's going to end up adding the galleries 5, 6, 7, and 8 below the 4 pictures that we just put in. All right, and then of course, when you are all done with 13 working, that's what it will look like. Okay. All right. So I wanted to zoom in. This is what your 13 working will look like when you are done with it. Okay. So if you take a look, all right, you will have, let me scroll. You'll have your gallery 4 with the same effects around it, your drop shadow and your blue stroke. You'll have gallery 3. You'll have gallery 2, you'll have gallery 1, all right, which are these right here. I did gallery 1 and 2. I'm allowing you guys to do 3 and 4, and then of course enlarge your picture to fill your frame. And then your gallery 5, 6, 7, and 8 will be done as actions and brought over as smart objects. And we know they're smart objects because you can see the little icon in the lower right-hand corner. Okay. All right. So this is what your 13 working will look like when it is finished. Okay. Now, I want to move on and talk to you guys about the second half of this lesson. And this is on designing with artboards. If you did not know that Photoshop could, work with artboards, designing with artboards, if you didn't know that, they can. I always used to think that your artboards was something that was an Adobe Illustrator thing, okay? But you can work with artboards in Photoshop as well. All right. I also wanted to point out, if you hold down your Move tool, which is V on your keyboard, but if you hold that down, your artboard tool is underneath your Move tool, okay? Just so that you know where that's at. All right, designing with artboards. Artboards let you create multiple designs in a single Photoshop document. This is a great feature to enable you to consistently design both maybe like a mobile and a desktop version of a website, for example. Then you can use the export as feature to export an entire document, or you can export individual layers to web and mobile friendly formats like PNG, JPEG, GIF, and SVG. It can even export multiple sizes at once if you need to produce sets of images for low or high res displays. You can also use the Export As feature to export entire artboards by selecting artboards or layers in the Layers panel. So we are also going to learn how to export entire artboards, which basically just gives you the whole view. And then every layer in the Layers panel will be exported as a JPEG. Okay. All right. So I am going to save that 13 working what I've done so far. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to close out the end file. Okay. And so this is what we have here, 13 Museo. And this is the part of the lesson that we're going to work with the artboards. And I'm going to go ahead and resave this. It's already a Photoshop file, so we just need to change it to 13 Museo underscore working. I'm going to go ahead and save that. It's now ready to go. So let's just take a very quick look at what we have over here in our layers panel. Sometimes if you just look at your layers panel before you start, you can maybe kind of get a feel for what we could possibly be working with. We have a folder for button art. If we expand that, it basically has this inside. Okay, we have a logo. You can toggle the visibility, the eye icon on and off to see what is what. We have the banner art, which is across the top. Makes perfect sense. It's the banner. We have a left column. We have a right column. Okay, and then of course we have our lovely background of white. Okay, so this is what we're going to have to work with. So if we're going to be working with another artboard, you could probably imagine we're going to have to duplicate or at least have a carbon copy, if you will, of all of these layers. Okay, so say for instance, this is our desktop artboard, which it technically is going to be. All right, we're going to create an additional artboard, okay, that would be for, you know, like a device, and it will be kind of tall and thin. So obviously, the layout of what we're looking at on our screen, it's not going to fit on a tall, like narrow layout, okay? So we're going to have to resize all of this information to fit, okay? So since I also teach web design, to me, this is almost like making it like responsive web design. All right. So you're looking at a website on your laptop, right, or your desktop, and you look at the same website on your mobile device, and you know how everything kind of resizes into one big long column. Okay, that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. Okay, except we are going to be the responsible for resizing and making everything fit. Okay. So that kind of helps if I explain it like that. Maybe you'll have a little bit better understanding. All right. So I need to go and start out by going to select and all layers. Okay. So that's going to get everything in my layers panel for me, which is great. And then I'm going to come back up on my menu bar at the top and go to layer and new. And I'm going to do artboard from layers. So since I have all of the layers pre-selected, I can go ahead and create an artboard from all of that selection. Okay, and so it's asking me, okay, what would you like to call the new artboard? Okay, so we'll call that desktop. It actually tells us what the custom width and height is, and then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Okay, so basically what it did is it moved us automatically to working with our artboard tool. Okay, so we're no longer over here underneath move like we were. So we get this pretty much the exact same size that we had. Okay, and notice now that it didn't put it in a layer group, but it did group it all into an arrow that can be expanded and collapsed. Okay, and it just named it desktop. So we don't see a layer group or a layer folder per se, because that's not exactly what it did, but it's kind of similar to it because it took all of those selected layers, because we did do to select all layers, select all layers, and then we did layer new from artboard. All right, so it activated the artboard tool for us, didn't, so we don't have to do that. And then it took all those layers and stuck it under the name artboard of desktop. Okay, and this is what we're looking at here. Okay, all right, so if you have never worked with the artboard tool before, whether that is here in Photoshop or even if you have not had Illustrator yet, you can add artboards on all sides here. Okay, that's what your little plus signs are. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to take and alt click the add artboard button on the right side, and it's basically going to duplicate. All right, so it did just that. Okay, I alt clicked and noticed it did desktop copy for me. Okay, all right. So I'm in the layers panel. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make some adjustments here. Okay, so in the property, I can do it in the properties panel, but it's whatever. So basically what I want to do is I want to go ahead and change this here. I'm going to highlight it and take this out, and I'm going to change it to iPhone. Okay, now they actually have you put in their iPhone 8, and then there's like a -7-6. I'm just going to leave that iPhone. Okay, I don't care if you put the 876 in there. All right, and then I'm going to press enter. And then right here in the properties panel, it says set artboard to preset. I need you guys to make sure that you do select the right one, and it is this one. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and change it. Your width should be 750 pixels and your height should be 1,334 pixels. Okay, so your artboard of the iPhone 876 should correspond to what it's going to be labeled as in your layers panel. Okay, again, if you'd like to do this iPhone 876 and label this here as in the layers panel, you can do that. Okay, I'm just going to put iPhone. All right. Okay, so I need to come down here and I need to expand. And I need to shift click to select all the layers in the artboard. Okay, I don't want to grab the name. I don't want to actually select the artboard name itself, which is iPhone. I want to select the button art and go all the way down and shift click to select layer 0. Okay, and then I'm going to press Control T. Okay, so Mac users, whatever the equivalent of control is on your keyboard, you want to make sure that you use your keyboard modifier for that. Okay, all right, now in my options bar at the top, I have to do some changes. Okay, I need to resize this. I want to set my top left square in the reference point indicator. Okay, the maintain aspect ratio, it needs to be depressed. You can see that there. And I'm going to enter 726 pixels for the height. So I need to take out 100% and put in there 726. And yes, you do need to put the PX in there. Okay. All right. So I want to make sure that I put that in there. And then I want to come over here and then I want to make sure that I shift drag down the selected layers until you can see the entire Museo at the top. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to do enter. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is I need to come over here and select the logo layer. So now I'm going to work with this just kind of one layer at a time. I need to do a Control T. Okay, and then I need to drag the bottom right handle on the free transform bounding box until the logo is roughly 672 pixels wide. Okay, so I'm basically just going in and doing some resizing. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and click to, oh, you know what? Hold on just a second. Okay. All right, then I need to select the banner art, left column and right column layers. Banner art, left column and right column layers. I'm going to get all of them at the same time. Okay, and then I'm going to have to do the same thing. All right, I'm going to do a Control T. And I need to shift click and drag this down until the top is even with the top of the blue stack on the left. Okay, so I've got to do some bringing down here, which I think is going to be about right there. I'll have to just double check. I think I need to just leave a little bit extra room. So I'm going to have to. Okay. All right. Sorry, got to get my notes back out. Okay. So what I want to do is I need to then go down and select my artboard itself. Okay, so I'm going to come back up here to the top and I'm going to kind of collapse that down. All right, so I'm going to select my artboard itself. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that my artboard tool is selected. And then I got to do some resizing here. Okay. So I need to drag this down until it is roughly 28 pixels tall. Okay. Almost. All right. So notice that it expanded the background to fit. Okay, I need to switch back over here to the move tool. All right, so basically what we need to do now is we need to rearrange the different portions of the iPhone artboard to nicely fit in the new taller area that we have for the height. Okay. All right, so I'm going to select my right column layer group first. And I'm going to do a Control T. And in the options bar at the top, I want to make sure that I select my upper right square of my reference point. Okay, and then I want to make sure that I click to maintain my aspect ratio. And then I need to put in here 672 pixels. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, all right. And then position the pointer inside the free transform dialog box. And I need to shift drag down these selected layers until the pointer is actually indicated on the vertical move of 1200 pixels. Okay, so I'm going to do a shift drag and see my vertical move. Well, I can't stop, but if you look at kind of the information as I drag this down, Okay, I need to be dragging this down and keep going until it gets to about 1200 pixels, which I'm getting very close. Oops, I might have just went over a smidge. Perfect. Oh, sorry. Let me try that again. I need to kind of scroll down so you can see. All right, I'm going to shift drag down and you can see my vertical move. And I'm going to go until it is about 1200. Okay. Awesome. All right. Now I need to come back in and grab my left column. And you know what? We're pretty much going to do the same thing until we get all of this to fit nicely. All right. My left column group and my layers panel is selected. I did a Control T on my keyboard, which is basically the transform. Now in my options bar, okay, if this is not visible, you just got to put a check mark in here to make it visible. I want this one to be the upper left corner for the reference. Point locator would be the upper left. Okay, you want to make sure that you're maintaining your aspect ratio. And I'm going to do 672 pixels for this one. And I need to do an enter. Oh, hold on a second. Sorry. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead to click to commit my changes. All right, so let's just stop for just a second and take a look at what we have. Okay, in case we need to do like any changes or adjusting. All right, so here we have our desktop. Okay, you can see that there. All right, and now we have our iPhone. Okay, artboard. So we have our desktop, we have our iPhone. All right, so basically all we did was duplicate our artboard, rename it iPhone, and then we extended the height, and then we used our edit and transform or Control T on our keyboard, specified the size and the location, and we just basically moved it into position. All right, so I think really the only thing that I need to move is probably going to be my logo. I'm going to just adjust my, oops, hold on a second. I'm going to adjust my logo up just ever so slightly, and I'm just going to use my arrows on my keyboard to do that, okay? Sometimes nudging with the arrows on your keyboard is actually a lot better. Okay, and it looks like my button art needs to come down just a smidge. So with my button art selected, now that's in position. Okay. All right. Our book gives us really great screenshots of what everything should look like. So you can adjust, you know, to get it in perfect position based on those screenshots. So I wanted to show you what this looks like. Okay. So here's our desktop. We didn't do anything to our desktop. Here is our iPhone artboard. Okay. So I moved everything into position, and then at the end, I kind of looked at mine compared to what was the screenshot in the book. And I just made some minor adjustments to my logo, my banner art, and button art to bring everything into position. Okay. So that looks great. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Control S, and I'm going to save that. Looking at the layers panel, we basically still just have two artboard groups, if you'll allow me to say it that way. We have our desktop, we have our iPhone, okay? All of the layers in those artboards are in the exact same spot in the iPhone as they are on the desktop, okay? All we did was just basically create more of a responsive design, if you will, based on the desktop width of our artboard versus the iPhone width that we have. Okay. The very, very last thing that our book covers as a topic for this lesson is exporting artboards with export as. Okay. So I will be honest with you, and this seems to get some students each semester. Okay. please don't skip this portion. This is actually the easiest thing in the entire lesson is going to file and export as. Okay, so what we're going to do first, okay, is take the artboards the way that you see them, this artboard and this artboard, and it's going to basically save the entire artboard as it almost looks like a thumbnail view, and it's going to save that whole thing as a JPEG. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first with exporting artboards with the export as. Okay, that is located on File, Export, and Export As. Got to wait for it to open. All right, so in the Scale All that's on the left-hand side, you want to make sure that the size is set to 1x, okay, and it is, and that there's nothing in the suffix. All right, in the File Settings section, which is on this side, if you don't already have JPEG there, okay, you want to make sure that you select JPEG, and then you can choose, actually, I think you can just probably leave it the way it is. By default, I think it comes in, you can see this right here. It's kind of not all the way to high, but it's a notch or two before it, so you can leave that the way that it is. Okay, and then in the color section, I think everything as far as this goes is pretty much good. Okay, yep, all of this is there. It looks like, yeah, everything matches the screenshot, so that'll be good to go. All right, so basically, if we take a look before I click export, do you see how it says select all and it's getting the whole view of the artboard for the desktop? And it's getting the whole view as we've seen it on the screen for the iPhone. That's what we're doing by exporting the artboards, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click export. All right, this is going to go into your assets folder. Okay, so if you have created a folder for assets, that's great. You please make sure you put it in the assets folder. There's only going to be 2 JPEGs in there. Okay, 2 JPEGs. All right. The next thing that we're going to do, and we're going to do this basically twice, is we're going to take all of the layers that is in the desktop artboard and we're going to export each one of those layers as a JPEG. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to do this. Surprise, right? Okay, and so I'm going to do my button art and I'm going to go all the way down to layer 0. So you want to select all the layers themselves in the desktop artboard, and up on your menu bar at the top, you can go to layer and export as. It's going to get you the exact same dialog box, you guys. All right, but the difference is that you see each one of those layers are going to be now their own JPEG. That's the difference between exporting and saving, the artboards and then the actual individual layers themselves. Okay, so size 1x, nothing in suffix. You can see all of the different layers are going to be now their individual JPEGs. You can leave JPEG, leave this alone, all of this. There's nothing really, any of this that you should have to change. And then you're going to click on the export button. Okay, so you want to make sure you navigate to your empty assets _ desktop folder. And then you're going to select that folder and it's going to place a copy of each of those in that folder for you. And then only one other thing do we need to do. I'm going to collapse the desktop and I'm going to expand the iPhone and I'm going to click the button art layer and go all the way down and shift click layer 0. Going to go back up to my menu bar at the top and go to layer and export as. You can see pretty much the exact same thing. Don't have to really make any changes whatsoever. You're going to click export. And as you can imagine, this is going to go into your iPhone one. Okay, your assets iPhone folder. Okay, and then you're going to export each one of those layers as a JPEG. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a Control S and save that because we are completely done. And I just wanted to show you, and hopefully you will be able to see this. I hope. Okay, my apologies if you can't see on my flash drive. Okay, this is what you should have when you are done. Okay, so if you completely finished lesson 13 and you're wondering, okay, what was that all again that I have to have in my folder? You're basically going to be zipping this entire folder. Okay, so here is 13 working that we started on at the beginning of the lesson. Here is 13 Museo underscore working that we did on the second half of the lesson. Inside your assets folder, and I'm going to change my view here so that you can at least see the images. Here is the artboard for desktop. Here is the artboard for iPhone. Okay. And the assets for your desktop, every one of those layers is now saved as its own JPEG. And here is the assets for the iPhone. Each layer has been saved and exported as its own JPEG. Okay, so you're basically going to come and zip that folder. And I'm going to go back one and show you how to do that, just to remind you. In fact, you can tell that's from like a long time ago. I'm going to delete that. So, okay, when you're ready to turn in your homework, okay, you are going to come to your lesson 13 file folder, the one that has the 3 folders with all the exported images and the 2 Photoshop files in them. You are going to right click. I'm on the latest version, okay, of Windows. And then mine is compressed to zip file. Okay, so basically it's going to take everything that's in there, all the files, all the folders. It's going to zip it into a zip file that has a little zipper on it. And so Blackboard is going to treat all of the stuff that is inside of that zip folder as one file. So when you go to turn in lesson 13, this one with the zipper on it is what you need to send to me. Okay, zipped, it is just under 33 meg. Okay, so that's a pretty good size file for what we've been working on. All right. All right. So that is everything. Pat yourself on the back. You've done an amazing job so far in the semester. You've went through all of the chapters and lessons in the book, watched the videos, you worked hard and turned in all of your homework. And so this officially ends everything that we are going to do in our textbook. All right. So yay for you. Next time that we get together for class, we will be talking about your very first portfolio project. So I'm so excited to cover the details of that and see what you come up with for your portfolio projects. Thank you so much. You've been great, and I will talk to you next time.